All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're cutting through the sensational headlines to unravel the incredibly complex web of facts surrounding the tragic Kolkata doctor case at R.G. Carr Medical College. Look, I know it's a really dark and heavy topic, but by breaking down the evidence step by step, we're going to uncover exactly what happened and, more importantly, why it has sparked such absolute widespread outrage.
So right off the bat, we're hit with a massive paradox. The prime suspect apprehended almost immediately, literally within 24 hours. The case was then handed right over to the CBI, which is India's premier investigating agency. On paper, it really looks like the wheels of justice are spinning fast, right? Yet, the public outrage, especially from the medical community, is stronger than ever. Why is that?
Well, to answer that, we have to look way past the single isolated crime. You see, what the doctors and students are out there protesting isn't just about one horrific night. They're actually protesting a deep-rooted systemic rot that basically made this tragedy a chilling inevitability. We're talking about a terrifying cocktail of unchecked power, massive financial corruption, and a deeply disturbing 20-year history of covered-up deaths right inside the walls of this very institution.
Let's start with Section 1, the rise of Sanjay Roy and the profoundly flawed system that empowered him.
Sanjay Roy's trajectory is just staggering. It's almost like watching a masterclass in exploiting loopholes. He started out as a simple hospital cook back in 2016. After disappearing for a bit, he pops back up in 2019 and joins the state's civic volunteer force. Now, this was supposed to be a temporary, low-level support role with a tiny stipend. But Roy, he was opportunistic. He somehow maneuvered his way into the police welfare cell, which essentially gave him the keys to the kingdom, direct access to government hospitals. Soon enough, he's running these illegal rackets, literally taking cash to secure free hospital beds for patients, and even selling civic volunteer gigs to other young men. By 2020, his political and police connections ran so deep that he was illegally granted a police barrack to live in, right there on the hospital campus. I mean, the guy even slapped Kolkata police on his personal motorcycle and t-shirts. He was parading around as law enforcement, enjoying completely unchecked access to every single floor and ward.
And here's the scariest part. Roy was an absolute ticking time bomb, and the authorities totally knew it. He had a well-documented history of extreme domestic violence, which tragically included brutally attacking his pregnant wife. Fast forward to March 2024, just months before the tragedy, and a patient's mother actually filed a formal police complaint against him for relentless harassment and stalking. He had stolen her number straight off a medical prescription. The police traced his calls. They knew for a fact he was guilty, but guess what? Absolutely zero action was taken. They didn't even revoke his volunteer status. And then, literally just 1 week before the August 8th crime, he harassed a female doctor on campus. The system completely and inexplicably shielded him.
Moving on to Section 2, we need to talk about the deeply controversial figure at the center of the administration, the corrupt principal, Dr. Sandeep Ghosh. Now take a look at this staggering discrepancy. By 2023, massive allegations of corruption were swirling around Principal Ghosh. A state investigation blew the lid off an illegal open-market smuggling ring run directly out of the hospital. Think about this. Hospitals produce tons of highly dangerous biomedical waste, use syringes, infected materials, you name it, which legally has to be destroyed. While NRS Medical College, which has the exact same bed capacity as R.G. Carr, reported destroying over 153,000 kilograms of waste. But R.G. Carr? They reported just under 5,000 kilograms. That is a massive missing chunk. So where did all that dangerous waste go? Official reports allege the principal was illegally selling it on the open market and taking a 20% cut for himself. Unbelievable, right?
And guys, the financial fraud didn't stop there. Official state investigations uncovered that a digital skill lab built at a neighboring medical college cost around 61 lakh rupees, but the exact same facility, built at R.G. Carr under Ghosh's watch, cost a whopping 1.97 crores. That is over 3 times the price. But wait, it gets worse. When medical students and faculty pushed back and protested these blatantly corrupt practices, the administration bit back hard. Students who were acing their theory exams were deliberately failed in their practicals, and their official medical registrations were held hostage as retaliation.
Let's pivot to Section 3, the timeline of the crime. Let's look closely at the undeniable facts from the night of August 8th into the early hours of the 9th.
We really have to contrast the stark reality of the 2 individuals involved that night. On one side, we have the victim, a driven, second-year postgraduate medical student who is in the middle of a grueling 36-hour shift, running purely on sheer dedication to her patients. Because a sleep disorder test was occupying the designated doctor's resting room, she just grabbed a red blanket and crashed on the floor of a third-floor seminar hall. On the exact flip side, we have Sanjay Roy. He spent that very same night drinking alcohol just outside the hospital walls, visiting local red light areas, consuming highly violent adult content on his phone, and finally, wandering the hospital corridors at 3 a.m., specifically hunting for a vulnerable target.
This timeline lays out exactly and chillingly how the night unfolded. At 11 p.m., the victim spoke to her parents for the very last time. At 3:50 a.m., CCTV footage captures Roy walking through the hospital's main gate. He is seen checking various wards and operation theaters before making his way up to the third floor. Then, at 4:03 a.m., wearing a Bluetooth earpiece, he walks right into that soundproof seminar hall where the victim is resting.
37 minutes. Just let that sink in. For 37 harrowing minutes, a brutal attack took place inside that soundproof room. Then, at 4:40 a.m., Roy simply walked out. He didn't flee the city in a panic. He literally just walked straight back to his illegally provided police barrack on the campus and went to sleep. The one massive mistake he made? That Bluetooth earpiece he was wearing when he walked in had fallen off during the struggle. It became the absolute crucial piece of evidence that would later connect directly to his phone when the police showed up at his barrack.
This brings us to Section 4, the cover-up attempt, where we dive into the severe administrative negligence that followed.
The sheer scale of the administrative negligence we're seeing here, honestly, it operates way more like a coordinated cover-up than any kind of standard medical or legal protocol. When the body was discovered, Principal Ghosh didn't immediately call the police. Nope. He personally inspected the crime scene first, wasting absolutely vital time and allowing the room to get completely contaminated by a crowd. Then the hospital actually called the parents and falsely claimed their daughter had committed suicide. Can you imagine? When those panicked parents finally rushed to the hospital, they were locked out, denied access to their own daughter's body for 3 agonizing hours. And to make matters even worse, the authorities rushed to cremate the body, actually bumping others out of line at the crematorium, all before an official FIR was even filed.
Naturally, the public backlash was fierce, and Principal Ghosh was practically forced to resign. But get this, instead of facing immediate penal action, the state government just transferred him. They made him the principal of an arguably better medical college in Kolkata. It was essentially a promotion. Even the High Court of Calcutta stepped in and harshly reprimanded the government on the record. They directly asked, basically, why is a principal who so completely failed his administrative and legal duties being rewarded instead of investigated?
And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it does. On the night of August 14, thousands of everyday citizens were holding a peaceful Reclaim the Night vigil right outside the hospital. But suddenly, a massive mob of around 7,000 unidentified vandals completely breached the hospital grounds. It was total chaos. They destroyed MRI machines, smashed CCTV cameras, and desperately tried to reach the third-floor crime scene. The police on site actually had to run and hide in the bathrooms. Now, independent news outlets, including investigations by the Indian Express, have factually identified several individuals in that violent mob as active political workers for the ruling TMC party. Though, to be fair, the party officially claims they were just random, overzealous supporters.
Let's move into our 5th and final section, a history of dark secrets and 20 years of alleged cover-ups.
To really grasp the gravity of this, we have to rewind the clock back to 2001. A medical student named Sumitra Biswas stumbled upon something out of a horror movie. He discovered that a powerful syndicate operating out of the hospital was allegedly bringing in sex workers and actually using female corpses from the morgue to create illegal pornographic content inside the hospital. Disgusting, right? When Sumitra threatened to blow the whistle, photos of his own girlfriend were manipulated and circulated as a threat. Just a few days later, he was found hanging in room 15. The police quickly stamped it as a suicide, which sounds eerily familiar to the initial story in our current case, doesn't it? And they completely shut down his parents' desperate pleas for a murder investigation.
Tragically, Sumitra wasn't the last. Over the past 2 decades, there is a distinct, terrifying pattern of students and faculty who pushed back, or maybe just witnessed too much, mysteriously turning up dead. You have Sumitra Biswas in 2001, Arijit Datta in 2003, Department Head Gautam Pal in 2016, Palumi Shah in 2020, and in every single one of these cases, the hospital administration and local authorities conveniently and quickly ruled them as suicides or drug overdoses, with barely a scratch of real investigation. So when you take a step back and really look at the whole puzzle, when you connect the deep, unchecked systemic corruption, the bizarre immediate cover-up attempts, a violent mob literally trying to destroy evidence, and this 20-year history of completely unexplained deaths, you really have to ask yourself, what is actually lurking behind the walls of this institution? Because the arrest of one violent man, it might just be the very tip of an unbelievably dark iceberg. And honestly, that is exactly why the protests haven't stopped and why the demand for true, systemic justice is louder than it has ever been. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those tough questions and keep seeking the truth.